Tierno, which is very exciting. But before we get to that, let's dig a little deeper into when you first decided you wanted to be an actor.
Careful
And
what you wish for.
I know. Like, well, that one time back in first grade.
Just yesterday.
We'll go year by year, right?
Yeah. I guess the first time I realized acting was for me was when I was 14. I was a very troubled youth, as many of us are. And I had actually just transferred schools. I was at this new school, and it was recess. I didn't know anybody, and on the ground was a little casting notice for a show called Runaways, which was about homeless teens on the streets of New York City. And I thought, that sounds interesting. So I went to this edgy audition for Runaways downtown Colorado Springs and sang something from The Phantom of the Opera, which I'm sure was the best choice for an edgy show about a homeless child. But for some reason they cast me, and it was great. It was great. It was
later find out your parents
right.
them with.
Yeah, please take my son. He
We'll
won't stop
write you
singing
checks.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just was like the first time that I was able to sort of work through, both intellectually and emotionally, some issues I was dealing with through the eyes of a character. And not that I was a homeless child on the streets of New York City.
Now the real scene. Now
Close,
we're really getting into
yeah.
the real meat of this interview.
Totally.
I
But
got here, I was like homeless.
I don't know what
And now
happened.
look at me,
He just started crying in the middle of his interview about something about a 14-year-old homeless kid.
You're gonna go back broken. You won't even be able to perform tonight.
Seriously. Yeah. No. It was just really cool and a pivotal moment for me, and kind of the first time I was able to connect this passion that I had for music with all of the emotional life that I was going through, and we all go through at that age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that I was hooked.
Where did you go to school to pursue? Yeah, see, you're not the only one who's ready to be done for the day.
Yeah.
Pursue your career. Did you go to college for acting, or did you go with that as a minor and a quote unquote real job?
I wish I would be way more intelligent. No, I went to a school outside of high school, in addition to high school, called the Colorado Springs Conservatory, which continues to be a huge part of my life. Every chance I get, I go back to Colorado and I teach, I direct, I write, all those beautiful things.
You're talking about Colorado.
Yes. So in addition to high school, I went after high school, I cleaned toilets to pay for my training at the Colorado Springs Conservatory.
Is that when you realized that this is something that you really want and you're really going to stick everything on the line for it? I mean, because that seems
I'm still waiting for that moment.
Really?
No, I think
because I'm thinking if you're going to do something that in that realm of getting money, then you must really need to want something bad enough.
Yeah, well, I think I was young enough to not really think that long term in the moment. Really, what it was just finding people that were different like me, and finding a group of people that I could fit in with. And that's still sort of the point of Colorado Springs Conservatory. It's taking those kids that aren't like the other kids at school because they have these weird gifts, or they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with, and giving them a place to thrive, to be told, oh, it's actually not bizarre that you are an emotional being and want to work that out through a character. It's not strange that you play 5 instruments and are a little socially awkward. That's actually encouraged. Come hang with us, and we'll help you grow. So I don't think at the time, obviously I had dreams and goals, but I didn't think that was a direct connection.
Gotcha.
I was just looking for some peace of mind and a way to get out of my house.
Did now that you can look back on that time, do you think that saved you from going down a really bad path?
Oh,
Focusing on
definitely.
acting? Yeah.
Definitely. Like I said, I had just started at a new school when I saw that notice. This all happened at the same time, but I was kicked out of my junior high because I was a really, really bad kid, and I was definitely headed toward something. I don't think a single friend from that junior high period of my life graduated high school.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really was, and it was like a divine intervention, you know, like suddenly in a new school and discovering this show that I auditioned for and discovering this voice teacher that graduated from Juilliard that was just starting to put this school together that became the Colorado Springs Conservatory. So,
and you're not just an actor; you're also a musician, which is a different way to get out your passion through music. So.
Yep, for sure.
Did you have a distinction of where you wanted to go first, or were you taking each one just as seriously as the other and forging whatever path you were led on?
I think it was pretty separate until I heard, and I didn't even know much about Broadway and musical theater, but I heard you could major in musical theater, and I was like, wait, what? That's like a thing?
That's so cool.
Because they were so separate. I would like do my acting thing, and then I was the drum major of the band, you know, conducting. And then when I realized, oh, I can put all of these freakish things together and maybe make money someday. And that's what I did. I went to Webster Conservatory and went there for musical theater.
What's the first job that you booked once you were out of college?
Well, I was. That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I've just
once I was out of college,
you've been cleaning toilets. You've been outed. What else did we get out of this?
Jeez.
This is why I called you in the middle
expelled from junior high.
Yeah.
The first job that I got, I actually got while I was in my senior year of college, and they allowed me to take it because they knew my financial situation. And it was Disney Cruise Line with Jennifer Hudson before she became an Academy Award winner. Yeah, so that was great. It allowed me, you know, obviously a great company to work for, but also allowed me to move to New York City and spend all of the money that I made in 3 months.
I was going to say within 72 hours you were broke again.
Yeah, went very quickly.
Yeah, not shocking in New York.
Yeah.
Did that give you a sense of, oh shit, like I'm here in New York, I really got to try and make ends meet here. It's an expensive place to live. It's, you know, everything here is just expensive. The food, everything. Did it discourage you at all that you were going to try and like dip back into a different career path?
Not really, and I think it's just because I've always been terrible at money. Like I knew how to
Why
do
should
that.
It change now, right?
Yeah, I knew how to like live out of a car, and you know, I knew that life, so that didn't scare me. When I ran out of money, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back and work for Disney again. So I did that, wrote them an email, and that's the beauty of being nice to work with. When you need another job, people usually
they
provide.
Like to hire you back.
So I did that, and then after that second adventure on the cruise ship, when I got back, that's when things started to build momentum pretty quickly. I think I only really had a real job for about 3 months, and I was fired. I was a bartender.
Outrageous.
I was fired for giving my friends free drinks. Like, then what's the point?
The whole point of being a bartender?
Yeah. But then I got a tour. I'm trying to remember the way that it happened, but I had my first job that gave me my equity card. I had already booked a non-equity tour, and they backdated it, so I could still do the non-equity tour and be equity.
You're going to be fine.
Nobody's on that interweb.
It'll catch on one day, but you'll be well established and.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to be arrested.
Yeah.
Or at least kicked out
They're
of the
actually
unit.
upstairs.
Yeah, good.
That's right into the PD. That's what this cord is.
Oh, that's why it's
That's
so
why
long.
I was pulling. Yeah, that's why it's pulling.
So I did the non-equity tour of Greece, which was a gift that just never stopped giving.
Who did you play?
In that production, I was the teen angel on the non-equity tour. And then, while I knew that was coming up, I got Disney's On the Record, which was like my first production contract. And I learned a lot of things doing that gig with some wonderful people. Emily Skinner, Ashley Brown, Andrew Szymanski. It was just like it was a
Some
small
there's
cast, but
theater people who are still
and we were
working
all
today.
so young that it was kind of all of our first thing. Not Emily's, obviously, but a lot of our first big job. And then from there, I think I did the All Shook Up tour was next. While on tour with that, I flew back. I took a red eye to my callback for Grease, the Broadway production, and that was my Broadway debut.
And what did you wear? in New York, idiot. You said Broadway.
Well,
pay attention.
A lot of people use Broadway
Loosely.
liberally. Yeah.
Who did you play?
In that production, initially, I was in the ensemble. I think I named my character Heinz Hauschka, the foreign exchange student.
Not in the playbill as that.
No, sadly, those fools. But I understudied Danny, Teen Angel, and Vince Fontaine. And
how was that for you to be understudying those huge roles and so many of them at one time?
It was great. I mean, that whole show, it's not, the most sophisticated piece of theater, but again, a lot of Broadway debuts, a lot of our first time together, and it was such a great company, so much fun, really wild.
That's kind of a show that you don't have to feel pressure of, are they going to like it?
Yeah.
If they're going, chances are they already know
They're
the
a fan
story,
of
they're already a
Grease,
fan
right.
of it. So that kind of pressure, I would think, would be taken off.
Yeah. I had a great time from what I recall. It was super exciting. No qualms about understudying. I was like, at one point, understudying Taylor Hicks and then Max, who won the TV show. So it was like, it was what it was. I was understudying people that won reality television shows.
Right.
And
because at that time, that was a big thing to do, was stunt cast with people who were coming off of reality television.
Has that changed?
Because I'm pretty sure Clay Aiken was around at that point doing Spamalot, maybe?
Yeah.
Ace Young, I think. Didn't Ace do Grease too?
He did. That's how, I know Ace and Diana really well, actually. And I think that's how I know Ace. I went on to replace Ace in the tour of Grease as Danny.
Gotcha.
And then Diana just did a reading of my show a year ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one of the shows that I wrote. She was unbelievable.
When did you decide you kind of wanted to dabble in that as well, putting out your own content? Because I know that in this day and age, there's so many platforms to get your work seen and people giving chances for quote unquote unknowns in the writing realm. You were known for acting, but
Yeah, you can talk people into anything these days.
that was your bartender training, right?
I think I always wrote music, and I've recorded a couple albums of just general pop folk music that I wrote from my point of view. But it was when I was in Legally Blonde, eating a fake steak in the background, thinking, I think I have more to offer. And I wrote...
Because it was a fake steak? If it was real, you would have been okay with yourself?
Oh, heck yeah. Can you imagine?
I was like, from Morton's.
I'd stay in that job forever. And I wrote Act 1 of Pleasantville the Musical, based on the film, and did a reading with some great people. Had a producer attached and tried to get the rights, and the studio and the writer of the film, like, there's no way, we hate musicals.
Fantastic, but everybody might not, so.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
get out of your privilege.
Right, but I'm super grateful for that experience because I learned that hard lesson of putting hours and hours and months, not years with that one, but into something that you're so proud of, and then putting your fate in other people's hands in a way that was so limiting, and that was it. There was no...
Did that help you with your acting and give you more confidence in your acting? Because you saw that you could do something that you really were... Did it give you more of a confidence in yourself?
Not necessarily. It was odd timing because I was feeling so confident in my writing and kind of thought was, I think that was the first time I quit acting.
You have fallback careers. So you're a singer, you're a writer.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's plenty to do.
just keep spinning the bottle to which one you want to do this
Right.
week.
And
But that's also amazing because you've had success with all of it.
yeah,
So it's not like you're like, oh, well, today I'm not acting, I'm going to be a singer today, and maybe I'll do something.
right.
It's like you've done all three well, so.
Yeah, hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Until this interview comes out, then it'll be like, who the hell is
Right.
this guy? Like, never again will we work with him.
Oh, God, I hope not.
I hope not too.
Yeah, so when I sort of hit that wall with Pleasantville, at the same time, I was offered my first leading role in a big show, which was Bob Gaudio and Jersey Boys. And I thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't retire acting just yet.
Yeah.
I'll play this really well-written, fun role for the next 2 years of my life.
Did that take a little bit of pressure off you as well because it was your Broadway debut and because it was a show that people already probably had a pretty good idea? Maybe not they knew who it was about and they knew the players in the story. But Jersey Boys was around for a very long time, and it's still obviously now playing off-Broadway, and it's a really feel-good musical, and like you really could affect people with that performance. Did you feel that weight when you were cast, or?
Yeah, I was terrified because I think I was auditioning to understudy the role, and I went in and I felt connected to the part, obviously. I mean, it's a writer
Right.
who doesn't necessarily want to be in the spotlight all the time. And there was so much that I was drawn to in the character, but I didn't go in thinking, this is mine. I thought they were looking for an understudy. And it was just a really good fit. I felt it in the room. I was like, I think I actually might be playing this part. And it all happened in one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there a pressure because you were playing a real person?
Yeah.
Versus somebody else?
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I mean, Jersey Boys is a lovely show, but it is a machine.
Right.
So I knew my take on this role, all of our takes on all of these roles, were going to be filtered through the lens of what had already been set up and what worked and a formula that they had decided on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was challenging. Meeting Bob Gaudio himself was just really awesome. I didn't feel like the need to play him.
Yeah, right. Well, because you want that freedom. You're an actor. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not character. You're not trying to be him.
Right.
100% mannerisms, all that.
And
other
I don't
stuff.
think he would want
Right.
that necessarily either. But yeah, it was a lot, and then there was a lot to do. It was a hard sing. It was a huge acting challenge and delight to go from being a 17-year-old to a 60-year-old in
Right.
the course of one show. Yeah, it was really tough for my first role that I owned, you know.
Almost like you felt 17 when you started, and then when you left, you felt 16.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. It aged me. Yeah.
So do you consider yourself primarily a theater actor, a stage actor, and do you get the most joy from performing in front of a live audience?
I think that has shifted.
And I don't mean that as a limiting question, like, oh, I'm only good enough for theater, or I only do theater, or
Right.
like TV is beneath me, or film is beneath me, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that your most comfortable realm?
For sure, as far as performance goes. I think, though, these days what's the most exciting for me is writing and directing. There's just something, the older I get, the more that I want to be not in control, but I want to present my art in a way that's not determined by other people's vision of what, and you know, as a writer, obviously a director is going to have their own vision of what I've written.
So you have
but
to direct what you're writing then.
yeah, well, I've done that too.
You can just do it all, and then it'll
Yeah.
be exactly what you want.
Yeah,
But then you have to turn over like the collaborative process of, okay, who's gonna like?
right.
Then they're just gonna think I'm an egomaniac that I had to do everything.
Right. Yeah, that is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I do prefer to work with other people because I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. And anybody who goes in with that mentality is
The funniest, though.
not a great
And the
director.
most self-depreciating, apparently, too, maybe.
Yeah, working on that.
Now,
I got to call my therapist.
I was just going to say, we could bring this interview to your next therapy session. And
Yeah.
She could, or he or she can point out everything you did wrong.
Yeah.
What, now you're in Cyrano,
Uh-huh.
which is just about to open, right? It has not opened yet?
We're in previews, so this
Previews
is
right
week
now.
3.
Was there a pressure that you felt going into that, or did you feel pretty even-keeled since you had started on Broadway for quite a long time and you had done tons of theater? I know a new show probably brings nerves and the...
I think I was just more curious than anything because I had never. I've done plenty of regional theater, but I've never done an off-Broadway show.
Right.
I've never done a show downtown, and I was like, this is going to be completely different from everything I've ever done,
Yeah.
and it has been in really beautiful ways. I've done commercial theater so often where there's just a sense of get the product up there, make it shiny, and make money, you know, and to be in a room that's almost like eerily relaxed and we're playing more than you would in a commercial theater setting. And you've got the National writing the music, and they aren't from the commercial theater world at all. They're very laid back and write such beautiful music and do their own orchestrations, which are lush and gorgeous. So there was just a lot that I was curious about going in, and I still am. I mean, every day is like, what's going to happen today? Because we are in previews, and it's a brand new.
So every day they could change something on you.
Yeah, and they have. Yeah,
And you're like, and as a matter of fact, they did.
when they should. You know, with any
you got to make sure
new.
everything's working, and
You get the beauty of previews, a month of previews where you can see how an audience is responding to. Our director did the adaptation, so it's her. She hired her favorite band to write the music. You know, begged them to. So this is really her vision coming to life, and what a treat for a month to see how an audience responds to what has been stuck in her head for years, and then to be able to. And she really has, and I would too if I were in her shoes. Used every second so wisely to play with it and throwing new songs in and moving stuff around and seeing how, you know, hundreds of people respond to it every night.
This might be a little early in the run to ask this question, but you went from Grease, which is a very heavily known show, and a lot of people feel good when they leave and they go to the stage door and they pump you up, and same thing with Jersey Boys. It's like, oh, I want to meet the guys, and like. Due to the casting of this production, I'm sure the stage door area is going to be quite crowded. Have you gotten the same responses from theater goers as you did playing the jukebox kind of musicals? I mean, obviously it's different subject matter, but can you tell people have really been into it because of the work that you're doing based on the story that you're doing?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I just feel like this downtown crowd is so different from a Broadway audience. I mean, in actuality, the majority of the Broadway audience is from either Europe or the middle of the country, and they don't necessarily go to the theater all the time. So you are gearing your responses in that way. You want the big flashy stuff because you don't want to bore the person that has never been to the theater before.
Well, is that a pressure too, that you feel like you could be playing to a huge host of tri-state area people, more so than people visiting, unless they plan their trip specifically around seeing Peter or
there's
someone
certainly an awareness that the audience is made up of some really smart, sophisticated theater goers that aren't just sitting back and trying to be entertained. They're engaged and they're analyzing the script, and which is exciting though. I mean, that's really what you want,
right,
I think.
Absolutely.
You want that final piece of the audience to be just as engaged and analytical as you are.
It's almost like you're affecting them in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and the show is just so
Right.
not that I'm going to
Obviously,
spoil the end,
yeah.
but
yeah, don't spoil the end. You know,
we don't do a mega mix. Well, I'll just put it that way.
there's no 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock number. What time is the number? 11
No,
o'clock
it's
number?
it's just very
Should know
different. And then the people that I actually think a lot of people are coming to Cyrano not realizing that it is, though it's kind of become a dirty word with our creative team, but it is a musical essentially. They're characters singing songs,
Yeah.
original songs that are written by the National. How cool is that? That describe their emotional situation. It is a musical. So I think people are surprised at that. I think a lot of the advertising doesn't even mention that word, musical.
No, I don't.
It says music by the National,
right.
and that can be interpreted in so many different ways. So,
Do you think that's intended or purposely done? I don't mean manipulatively to deceive people, but do you think they're trying to grab people in and surprise them? Like, okay, this isn't what you think it was going to be?
I actually don't know the answer to that.
I'll interview them. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I will.
And I don't know if it
I will get
stems
to the
from
bottom
the
of
marketing
this.
team or if it stems
Right,
from
right.
our director. I don't know. It's a curious choice because not that we're having trouble selling tickets, because there are Game of Thrones and National fans out there. But it is, from a marketing standpoint, odd because historically musicals sell a lot better than plays.
Right.
But anyway, all that aside.
All the politics of the show business aside, right?
Yeah, it's an atypical musical. And it doesn't have, that huge uplifting ending. But people are certainly enjoying it, and I've loved seeing the different iterations and all of the work that we've put into Act One in particular. And it is certainly worth seeing. It is completely different from anything I've ever done.
That kind of led me into the question I wanted to ask of, you did Grease and Jersey Boys, and they were already cemented when you got into it. Mm-hmm. Now you're in a show that is still kind of trying to get its legs or see what works, what doesn't work. Can we shorten it? Can we lengthen it? Like, what's going on with the whole thing? Is that, I don't want to say more exciting, but does that get you going more than already being stepped in and like, this is what you have to do, you're Bob Gaudio, do this. You're Danny Zuko, you have to do this. Like,
right. Yeah. Fortunately, I've been doing that for several years now because I was part of the prom.
That's right.
And I did the out of town in Atlanta, and we would come in every day with a stack of paper this big. So relatively speaking to that experience, which was just lots of changes every day, major stuff. This has been, you still have the story of Cyrano, which is set,
Right.
that it's an adaptation of something that is pre-existing. So it's not like we're starting from scratch.
Right.
So the changes, though they seem big at the time, compared to something like The Prom, where not a word was written down before they started working on it.
Yeah.
And there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. You can get rid of characters. You can bring new characters in. You can do anything. With Cyrano, there's still some borders there. Mm-hmm. So it hasn't been too wild. But to answer your question, far more exciting for me personally.
And The Prom kind of had a cult following.
Yeah.
What was it like for you? Obviously, you were disappointed when it ended, but it also led to this opportunity. So what are your feelings now about that? Are you one of those people that thinks everything happens for a reason and you wouldn't have been able to do Cyrano if you were still doing Prom, or would you have gone out for Cyrano anyway?
I probably wouldn't have, actually. My audition for Cyrano was 2 days after the Prom closed. And I still was like, I don't know. Because it's doing an original musical, 8 shows a week, it's a lot of work. And at the time, and still in many ways, I felt like I needed to recover. And it was such an emotional experience and such a lovely group of people. And to suddenly not have that nightly jolt of humor and joy, it was shocking. and to start a whole new show a couple weeks later was abrupt. Though, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly grateful to be a part of Cyrano, and I was ready for a new challenge. And also just working as a writer and composer, working with a similarly minded group of people on a new production has been great for me. I'm learning on so many levels. But they were disconnected. I had no idea that Cyrano was going to happen until after prom had closed. And at the time, I was doing this huge concert a week after the prom closed at the Green Room, which was a huge undertaking. So even auditioning for Cyrano was like, I'm so stressed out and I have all this work to do. I'll go to this audition just to say that I went. Though it felt like a good fit. They were looking for somebody that could play guitar and handle classical text and humor. And
so there your musician background came in handy too.
Yeah. And I was intrigued, certainly, by the story of Cyrano, by the fact that the National wrote the music and Peter Dinklage. You know, there was enough that was so intriguing. But it was a lot to take in when I got the offer the same day, you know, as I'm preparing for this huge concert. So it's been a huge whirlwind since prom.
Right. I hope that people come to the theater to watch your performances with an open mind and not to say that it's a bad thing to be a Game of Thrones fan and go see it for Peter, but don't go in thinking you're going to see Tyrion Lannister or see Blake Jenner in one of the roles he's played.
Right.
Or see you harken back to your Grease days, or or any other things. Like, almost like, don't let the reputation of the people in the show make you feel a certain way as you're going in.
Yeah.
Because I think you probably lose out on an experience.
Yeah, I think that's a big ask, especially in Peter's case, because it was so many years of playing this one character. But I think the audience probably gets over that within the first scene. The second he opens his mouth to sing with this low, rich baritone, I think you're like, okay, this is not Game of Thrones. Great. And what a treat to get to see him live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also got to be hard for someone like him who is so well associated with a character and probably wants to break free. I know Kit Harington has had his struggles since it ended. Like, not Jon Snow, like, I'm an actual human being who wants to do different things, and I think everybody puts their eggs in one basket and only want to see somebody as pigeonhole them into one thing. Do you feel blessed in a way that you have gotten to perform a bunch of different things where you haven't been pigeonholed into that kind of a feeling? And I'm not saying they're never going to get work other than what they had played. What I'm saying is that there's not an expectation. You get to go out there and be free and have fun, and
sure. I mean,
without the added pressure of, oh my God, they're coming to see Tyrion, and they're not going to see that.
Right. Yes, that's certainly an advantage. If somebody's going to be handed that pressure, though, it should be Pete, because he's just so like easygoing that I don't think he's coming at it from that angle. I think he's probably just like, cool, I get to play and do this now. Right. And what a treat.
It's interesting that you say that, because I saw Betrayal with Tom Hiddleston and with Charlie Cox, and they're the same way. They're so excited to be doing theater.
Yeah.
And at the stage show, they don't want to hear, I mean, they have fans because of Loki and Daredevil and whatever else Marvel-y that they've been in. But when you like have a conversation with them, if you stay after and have a conversation with them, they're very engaging with that, because they say, oh, they're not here just because I'm Loki, or not because I'm Tyrion, or because I'm Daredevil. Like, and I think that's probably got to be a pretty rewarding experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like live theater. So I'm sure that's more thrilling in a lot of ways than being in front of a camera and doing the same thing for years and years.
Have they asked you for, like Blake and Peter, have they asked you for advice and how to handle things as a theater veteran that you are?
I've talked to Blake a little bit. Blake is just such a fun, like, easygoing guy. You know, I think this is the first musical that either of them have done. So I think the biggest thing that anybody jumping into doing a musical 7 or 8 shows a week, the biggest challenge is the day you realize, oh, I have to do this again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day.
Twice
and I'm
on
singing,
2 days.
and I'm yelling, and I'm doing all this stuff. So I think reality has set in a little bit as to the sort of discipline it takes to be able to recreate that performance, or at least give the best performance you can that night.
Yeah.
For Blake, he doesn't live here, so it was a whole other added element of like moving to New York to do this thing he's never done before in an apartment he's never seen before. So I think he was longing really for just like friends and people to connect to. And it's a really small cast, really small, which is beautiful and forces us to get super close really quickly. I think that's been helpful for him. But it's
awesome.
really just silly things like, how do you stop the lyrics from running in your head at night when you need to go to sleep? You know?
You think it's silly, but like to him, it might not be. Like
right.
to him, it's like a
well,
struggle
and
right
I've
now.
been there, you know.
Right, and like that 14-year-old kid who was getting in trouble and all this other shit has now carved a really nice career for himself that has no signs of letting up. So I really appreciate you. I know you're in between shows today, rehearsal and all kinds of other stuff. So I really appreciate you coming down here.
Oh, thank you.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you.
You as well.
Thanks.
Great to like tonight.
Thank you.